And good morning, Wareham. It is Wednesday, October 16th, and I have a fantastic show here for you. The news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. This morning, Cindy Parola weighs in on naming the new elementary school. Also, Cindy Arvin talks photography and learn about Vivint Solar. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay with us because the weather and the news headlines are next. Wareham Week had the following stories. The Wareham High School Guidance Office went through a renovation to reflect calmness, support, and a sense of security. The redesign of the office did not cost the school any money. The office was decorated by Megan Pogosh, who donated her time, design skills, and furniture. She said, "Our environment affects us so much, and I feel like students need to be in a calm space to approach the cancer." Into another news, it is almost Halloween, and YMCA has a collection of costumes for everybody, costumes for affordable prices. Costume Swap was hosted on Saturday by the Gleason Family YMCA. The event featured clean, lightly used outfits for children and adults of all ages. The goal of the swap was not only to make Halloween affordable for anybody in the community, but also to reduce waste by reusing costumes rather than sending them to the landfill. And also, if you have not gotten your Halloween costume yet, please stop by at the Y. And to another news of the day, electronic voting will be coming to Wareham for the first time at the upcoming Fall Town meeting scheduled for this October 28th. Town moderator Claire Smith said that while officials have been discussing electronic voting for several years, the town didn't have the funding to make it a reality. This meeting will be a free trial for the company Turning Technologies to allow voters to try out the technology and see whether it is something the town wants to commit or not. Also, a man was seriously injured on 19th Street in Onset when a tree he was cutting down fell and struck him at about 9 a.m. on Monday night. Onset Fire Station received a call which initially reported that the man, who was estimated to be in his 60s, was trapped, but it turned out that he was not. Officials did not release the man's name or any more information about his injuries. And to another news, the Berkeley man who brutally murdered 70-year-old John E. Williams II in 2016 was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on Friday, October 11th. John Whitty, who is 73 years old, was found guilty of first-degree murder with extreme atrocity and cruelty, and with deliberate premeditation, unlawful possession of 2 firearms in his home, and unlawful possession of a large capacity firearm or feeding device by a jury who deliberated for 4.5 hours following the 8-day trial. Whitty murdered Williams after finding out about a relationship Williams had with Whitty's late girlfriend. During the trial, the prosecutor said that shortly after midnight, Whitty entered Williams' residence, cut him on the hand and arm, stabbed him in the torso, and shot him 10 times. And that is all for this morning's news headlines. We are going to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you what to expect outside. morning, Wareham, and welcome back. Now it is the weather. This is what I have for you for today. It's going to be a lovely day, as you see today. Just plenty of sunshine, no clouds. And so we are looking at high at 62 degrees this morning, and we are expecting about 1 to 2 inches of rain tonight, with low of 52 degrees. So pretty a good kind of romantic night. I see rain as a romantic gesture. I don't know if you see it the same way. Anyhow, we're going to go to tomorrow. And tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies with a few showers in the morning. Okay, so if you straighten your hair in the afternoon, you'll be fine. But in the morning, it's pretty much a lost cause. So don't even bother. I think tomorrow, rock those curls. All right, high at 56 tomorrow. Winds could occasionally gust over 40 miles per hour. So make sure you have a sturdy umbrella. Otherwise, woo! There's that movie of flying with an umbrella. It will come to me. It's a Disney film. Bob, do you have that one? What's the name of that Disney film? Mary Poppins, flying. That's what's going to happen to you tomorrow if you do not have a sturdy umbrella. And what happens? And low at 43 degrees. So a lovely night. Not a romantic gesture at all because there won't be any rain. So just, you yourself, cold, 43 degrees. And that's all for this morning weather and tomorrow's weather's forecast. Right now, we're going to move on to our first featured program of the day, and that is Cindy Arvin talking about photography.
All right. Hello, I'm Cindy from Cindy Irving Photography. I specialize mostly in family portraits as well as corporate and business beauty headshots. Well, I always loved taking portraits, so I was the one at the dinner table or at holidays where my brother was like, get out of my face. Most of my family was like, all right, Cindy, put the camera down. But that was me, always with the camera. Let's see, 2011, I got my first DSLR, the digital camera, and then I kind of played around with that, went to school in Costa Rica, studied photography, and so I remember saying it was like, I'm all done, like this is too hard, I'll just shoot on manual. Like I'm not trying to be a photographer, which is kind of funny looking back at it now. And then I ended up having my daughter and I took out my camera again, kind of just played around with it, but nothing fancy. The way I really got into photography was my friend. She said, hey Cindy, you have a fancy camera, can you take pictures of my newborn? And I'm like, yeah, I have a fancy camera, but I'm not a photographer, so I can't take pictures of your newborn. She's like, please, I really want pictures of my newborn. And I'm just like, all right, we can try it. I can't promise you anything. So that was my very first shoot for someone. I went to San Diego my first year probably photographing to meet with a group that I was part of. So that was my very first travel for photography. And then later on I ended up going to places like Seattle where I did family photo shoots. I've been to in Poland. When I was in Poland I got to do some family shoots. Let's see, New Mexico, I've done corporate work there, New Orleans. So just kind of all over the States in a sense, although Poland and Belgium was one of those places where I did get to photograph, which was cool. Okay, so my process meeting a new client. Well, first they call me. We have that initial phone conversation, and I definitely encourage phone conversations because I get to talk to somebody, I get to hear their voice, they get to hear mine, we get to have a different type of connection versus if I'm trying to go through emails. So after that, if we seem like a match, I have them come in for a consultation so they can see what I have to offer. Because me talking about, oh, this photo mounted like this, nobody's gonna understand that. You have to come and touch it, as you saw some of my stuff. So after that, the next process would be the photo shoot, which is the super fun part. And then after that, I have something called a viewing and ordering session, which is when I go to the client's house, we do a consultation, almost kind of like an interior designer, because I'm basically, if they're doing wall art, I'm designing design for their walls, like what layouts are we going to do for the galleries, and so that's pretty much my process for that. So my favorite part is the delivery because that's when I get to reveal that, oh my God, look at your photo, it looks amazing. And it's always such a different experience from a digital, because looking at a digital on the computer and seeing that, but versus seeing it printed, there's just something magical about that print, something magical about having it in your home. My favorite portrait, I should have brought in, but it's the one you saw of my daughter. She's such an outdoors person, and I'm kind of like, all right, let me stay huddled inside. And so that portrait in particular was her playing outside. And so for her, playing outside is fun. For me, capturing the moments is fun. So I'm like, all right, compromise. You're outside, I'm taking the camera. We're both happy. And so I just kind of snapped the portrait. It's just her face and her eyes. And just something about her eyes for me. It's just like, you know, there in that photo, it just looks like the world. Like I could see the world in her eyes. And so that one, as you saw, I probably printed a million times. But I love looking at that because it's my baby, but it's also like I'm just looking deep into her eyes. Well, the recipe, I think, is to definitely have everybody be comfortable. And so that's why I like to meet clients ahead of time and not at the photo shoot, because at that point you already kind of built a relationship. And so they kind of know you. Maybe the kids, not so much, because depending if they bring their kids or not to the consultations, but you just kind of develop that relationship where everybody's kind of comfortable once you get to that point of the shoot. And then for little kids, if they haven't met me yet, you know, kind of tucking the camera away for a little bit and kind of getting to know them, getting down on their level, saying like, you know, I'm Cindy, how are you? You know, what's your favorite, you know, princess, or what's your favorite cartoon character? And just kind of like building that bond first. And I think once you have that, you know, you have the trust of your clients, especially the little ones. And so just going from there, I think that's important.
Those long legs pay off.
Right, you guys are awesome. All right, so we're gonna head over to the beach.
All right.
The first few shots I'm gonna take, there's like a grass in that area. We're gonna start there. And so after that, we'll start we'll do like the rocks over there and stuff. I'll show you guys. Just follow me. All right. Looks good. All right, Steve, let's see if you can sit on that rock. I'm gonna see how you look. Excuse me.
Stress down.
Perfect. I'm gonna adjust you guys. All right, don't look at me, Liv. Ah, I said don't look. Give her a little tickle, Steve. I don't know if her belly's, oh, beautiful. My role as a photographer, I believe, is to capture these memories for people so that they can look back on it and, you know, hopefully see this time where the kids were little, or just kind of go back into the past and relive that moment. And I want it to be a happy moment where they're looking at that and saying like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, little Timmy was so little, but that was such a fun day, and I miss that, you know? And something where they can pass on to generations. So my role is to have something tangible that they can look back on.
Well, thank you for staying with us this morning. And now we're going to move on to another program of the day, and that is my interview with Bryce Nelson, who is the district manager for Vivint Solar. We were discussing solar energy and how easy and affordable it will be for you to turn to solar power. And actually, you can save money right now instead of waiting down in the line. So take a look. Welcome back. So we have our first guest of the day, Bryce Nelson. Last time I called you Bruce.
You did. It's okay. I get Bruce a lot.
Sorry, Bryce. Bryce Nelson is in the studio, and he is the manager of Vivint Solar, right? District manager of Vivint Solar.
That's right.
And he's here to talk about Vivint Solar, what it is, how you can join in, and yeah, and the rest of those questions. So how about this? Let's start with what Vivint Solar is.
Sure. Vivint Solar, so we're a solar company. Effectively, the power companies in Massachusetts have been mandated to have more renewable energy on the grid. And so what we do is we help homeowners figure out if their house gets good sun exposure, whether or not solar is a good option for them, but most important, whether or not it'll help them save money off of their power bill. And so a lot of folks do it a couple of different ways. You can own solar panels where you're physically buying these panels, you get some tax credits, you get all the power it produces, and it just belongs to you. So that's a good long-term plan. What most people do in this area is another option where they don't own the system. A solar company comes in, outfits their house with solar power, and now instead of paying high utility rates to the power company, because their power is being generated from the roof, that power costs a lot less, and so they're just paying a lower rate for their power.
What is better, to own these panels or to have like a company like yours come and rent your roof?
It all depends on the situation. A lot of people will say, oh, you only want ownership, or you only want to do it this way, that way. Everybody's situation is so different. If I'm a young guy who's going to live in his house for 30 years, if I get a lot of sun exposure, yeah, ownership might be the way to go, just because in the long run, I'll make a lot more money from that investment. If I'm retired, I don't pay a lot of taxes, or if I'm going to move in 5 years, or if maybe I don't get a ton of sun exposure, I might not want to invest my own money, but letting a solar company put their panels on my roof and now I pay half price for power, that's a very safe play where I don't have to invest or risk anything, so that might make more sense.
And there's also the issue of cost. Owning solar panels, this is a very expensive investment.
It can be, but really not compared to what you're paying the power company anyway.
Okay.
If your power bill is on average, let's say $150 a month, that's money you're going to be paying anyway, no matter what. Everybody uses power. And so if you can have solar panels put on your roof, the panels themselves, I mean, it might cost 20, 30 grand, but if you're making $120 payments on solar panels, that's still cheaper than $150 a month to the power company. And those payments to the solar panels, eventually that's paid off and you have free power that you own. And so if you're spending that money anyway, you might as well put it towards something that's going to benefit you in the long term, rather than just throwing money away to the power company that you never see again month after month after month.
So how does Vivint Solar work? So they come to your house, they put in the solar panels, then what are you responsible to give to Vivint Solar?
Well, the first part of it, it's kind of a longer process.
Okay,
and so
take us through the process.
essentially, we'll sit down with the homeowner and really help educate them on whether or not their house is good for solar. Some houses aren't facing the right direction, or the roof's in a different condition, and so really we just want to help them understand whether or not solar's a good option for them. If it is, sure, we go through the process of installing solar panels on their house, providing them that cheaper power, and then we also guarantee the system to where we want to be sure that it's always producing well, that there's no issues down the road, or that it's always producing the power that we're promising to them. And so we're basically the company that maintains, operates, owns the system, to where the homeowner never has to think about, where's my power coming from, or is it cloudy today? All that's taken care of for them. All we want them to do is just pay a cheaper power bill, and we take care of the rest.
So let's say they produce, I mean, I'm not a homeowner, so and I rarely look at my electricity bill. I have not yet to dabble on that yet. However, so tell me, on average, how much would somebody produce, and how much is that theirs, and how much is that goes to Vivint Solar?
So everything produced from the roof belongs to the homeowner.
Okay.
And so a lot of people think that where, a solar company's going to come in, they're going to put panels on my roof, and they're going to keep the extra power or sell it or something. That's not how we make money. If we outfit someone's house with solar, every drop of power that's produced from that roof belongs to the homeowner.
And they just pay you the cheaper price.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So instead of paying $150 or $200 or whatever their power bill is, in this area it's to Eversource, everything's coming from the roof, and now their power bill is $70 or $60 or just something much cheaper.
Okay. So let's say you're one of those lucky homeowners where you are getting so much sun. Does the price fluctuate depending on how much sun exposure you get?
It can.
Okay.
It can. So if a house gets a ton of sun exposure, then the value of that roof, you're capable of producing a lot of power. And so your rate's going to be a little bit cheaper. But that's a common misconception. A lot of people think I have to get perfect sun or else solar's not for me. So maybe their house faces east-west or a direction they don't think is conducive for solar. Even a house that doesn't get great sun exposure, we can still produce their power, and let's say it's only 20% or 30% cheaper. That's still much cheaper than you're paying the utility company, and so it can be a huge benefit for you.
Okay.
So good sun exposure is great, but any sun at all, we've got some room to work where, yeah, saving you money is definitely a possibility.
Now, speaking of climate that is inducive to solar, would it be best for those living in the south? Oh, I'm thinking Las Vegas.
Right?
This is pretty much a desert. Sun is there shining 24 hours.
For sure, yep.
Right? So wouldn't somebody benefit more over there than here in New England?
You'd think so. Like these areas like New Mexico and Arizona and these really sunny states. The trouble is, so Massachusetts, if you think about the way we're getting power, we have these power plants in New York, Canada, and then all of this power is being delivered over these power lines to people's houses. And anyone who's been in New England knows, like, the wind blows, a tree falls down, the power goes out, they have to pay people to come fix it. It's just very expensive to produce power in New England. And so if I lived in Las Vegas, most of their power bills can be 30 or 40 bucks a month. It's just not really expensive to have power. And so having solar in some of those areas, it just doesn't make a lot of sense because they're not paying a lot to begin with. In New England, so Massachusetts has the highest power rates in the continental United States. So even though it's not the sunniest place in the country, the benefit for solar, Massachusetts is, I mean, in the top 3 states as far as the benefit for homeowners to have solar, even though it's not the sunniest state, just because of the outrageous cost of power.
Yeah, each dollar counts.
You bet.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you also get to control how much you want to use. Let's say you produce so much, but you didn't get to use all of it. What happens? Does that you save it for the next month?
That's exactly. It's like the old rollover minutes with a cell phone, right? So
Very nice.
if you overproduce in the summertime, all that extra power feeds through your meter and spins it backwards and is stored out on the grid, and then you'll utilize that power the next month or in the winter time when the sun's not very high, you're not producing very much, you'll just draw from that overproduced power that you've stored, and all of it belongs to you, so it doesn't go anywhere.
So back to New England and the terrible weather, unpredictable weather in New England, power lines, winds. We're talking about 40 miles per hour kind of winds.
Sure.
Okay, snow is about to come. What happens? Your roof gets snowed in. Who's responsible to go there and make sure that those things are working correctly?
The great thing with solar is there's no real moving parts, right? I mean, they pretty well maintain themselves. Anyone who, I mean, most people have seen solar panels just in their neighborhood, on the street. Anyone that has solar, snow typically melts really quick. The solar panels stay a little warm. If we had a foot of snow overnight or something crazy, the snow tends to slide off within a day or two. So really, they take care of themselves. You don't have to go sweep panels off or clean them at all. The snow's going to slide off within a couple of days, and they're back to producing. Now, in the wintertime, panels don't produce a ton just because the sun is so low in the sky. But in the summertime, that's really where you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. But in the winter months, when it's a clear day and there's no snow on the panels, sure, you'll produce some. So
back again to the question of why aren't many people doing this?
Most people, the misconceptions of solar are unbelievable. Everyone's heard about something or a neighbor told them something else and they just think that applies to everyone. Where it used to be solar companies would put a lien on your house. There's no lien with solar panels anymore. Well, a lot of people think, oh, I have to have a brand new roof for solar to make sense. When it's not true. If you have a roof that's, I mean, even 15 years old, we can easily put solar panels on there and begin saving you money. And then when you need to replace your roof in 10 years or 5 years, you call up Vivint and say, hey guys, come remove your panels, we need to reshingle. We come out and remove them, and then we'll come back out and replace them when you're done and take care of all that. So it makes it really simple where anyone with good sun exposure on their roof, there's options to get solar panels. The big question is how much benefit will you actually receive and does it make sense for your situation? And so we just go around running free reports for people to help them understand whether or not it's going to benefit them.
So it's basically people are unaware of this thing exists.
Pretty much. And what's happened lately over the past couple of months, anyone who gets their EverSource bill, they have EverSource splits their bills into a couple of different categories. there's a supply charge, and then there's all these generation charges to deliver that power to your house. And so because Eversource is now being required by the state to have more renewable energy, they have a couple of supply charges in there. One is called a distributed solar charge, and one is called a renewable energy charge. So everyone that's using Eversource is already being charged by Eversource to pay for solar. They just don't know it. And so everyone's paying for these solar projects, so Eversource has this pot of money that they use to incentivize people to have solar power. And so anyone that gets good sun exposure on their roof, sure, why not have a solar company come in and put panels on their house and now take advantage of this money given to them by Eversource. And so Eversource will literally send people checks every month because they're producing green energy. And so it's a good investment for them, and they're also being paid to use solar, which is great.
So the consultations are free? Like somebody can just pick up a phone and call you and you come?
That's all I do, Queen, is I talk to people and I sit down and we take a look at their roof. We'll put together a design that shows how much power their house is capable of producing. Most important, whether or not that power will actually save them money. Some houses we say, hey, this house isn't a good fit for solar, here's why. But 9 times out of 10, yeah, you used to pay $300 a month for power, now you're going to pay $130. This is a no-brainer for you. And then we help them move forward from there.
So for a person who owns a house and then they're like, okay, they have your company and then they're selling that house, do they need to take the panels out before you guys get into an agreement with the new owner, or?
So it actually works very similar to the way the power company works now.
Okay.
So if I were to move, I call up Eversource and I say, hey, I'm moving. Whoever moves in, they're going to take over, and Eversource is going to supply them power.
Yes.
So they move in, they call Eversource and say, hey, put the power bill in my name. Same thing with solar panels. If I had panels on the back of my roof, when I move, I let the new homeowners know, hey, good news, this house has solar, so you'll pay really cheap power. Call Vivint Solar to put the power bill in your name. And we transfer everything over, and we take care of that with the new homeowner.
So give us a website. What's the easiest way to get to you guys to learn more about this?
VivintSolar.com has a ton of information on there. Anyone, I assume you can provide them my information, they can call me or shoot me a message, and I'm happy to stop by and walk people through it and see if it would benefit their situation as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So it doesn't cost anybody anything, right?
No, we consult with them, and then if we can save them money, great, we will. If we can't save the money, it doesn't make sense, we won't.
Yeah.
So there's no real harm or risk in it at all.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the face who has told you that there was no risk to you whatsoever. So in case you say, yes, Vivint Solar is for you, don't talk to me, talk to Bryce. Bryce.
Happy to, you bet.
Happy to. So thank you so much, Bryce, for being in the studio this morning to continue on this discussion on Vivint Solar, going green. It's a direction that we should all be taking. Climate change, Mother Nature, and all that. Absolutely. So yeah, your information sounds great, and I hope more people will be aware and they can reach out.
I hope so too, you bet.
Thank you.
No
so
problem.
That was our guest, Bryce Nelson, the district manager for Vivint Solar, and here talking about Vivint Solar, how easy it will be for you to go green energy. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with more.
Today's cell phones are not only an extension of our arms, but a life tool. Hello, I am Maureen Farrington from Advantage Custom Apps. I am here today to talk about a certain app, a tool that will help you navigate your way through the Wareham community. The WCTV app places your local community in the palm of your hand. The app is a place where you will find local events, town meetings, local and school sports, community interest stories, compelling interviews, and most of all, the ability to shop local. Connect to the Wareham app by going to your web browser and typing in wctv.app. And then, once you bring up the web link, you have the opportunity of adding WCTV's app to your home screen. Once you download the app and save it to your home screen, you will then have the opportunity to, with the touch of a finger, hit the call button, which we call WCTV, the refer us button. You can refer the app to your friends and families. There's a Facebook share button if you'd like to put that on your Facebook page as well. And here is the menu tab. On the menu tab, we have YouTube videos. new program proposal, events that WCTV is hosting, a photo gallery, contact button, and can lead you right to their website. We also have a Shop Local tab. When you touch on that, you'll see the local businesses that you can frequent. Also, there's an About Us tab telling you some information about WCTV, their hours and directions. This here will take you right to their Facebook page. There is a donate button if you would like to donate to WCTV, and a join button that will let you join their community. Many local establishments are listing their business on the WCTV app. And you can too. It's a great way to showcase your business to your existing customers and your potential new ones. For a nominal fee, you could list your business on the Shop Local tab as well. A percentage of that fee goes to fund a scholarship for an outgoing senior. So be in the now and get the WCTV app on your home screen.
Thank you for being with us this morning. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio. And this is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history. Let's take a look at where we were today in history. Well, this day in political history, Abraham Lincoln spoke out against slavery in 1854. At this time, Lincoln was only a lawyer who was gunning for a position in Congress. He was specifically calling out the newly passed Kansas-Nebraska Act, which would allow the two brand new states to vote on whether or not they should allow slaves. Lincoln and many other abolitionists worried that this would set precedents for any other new states looking to join the new nation. Also today in emergency history, a one-and-a-half-year-old child named Jessica was rescued from a well in 1987. Baby Jessica was trapped in there for 2 days when she was playing with her friends. The well ended up sinking in. She fell down. The TV crews broadcasted live while rescue teams dug second hole parallel to the well in order to access her. They were able to save little Jessica, who is now 33 years old, a mother living in Texas. Also today in soccer history, dozens of people were killed during a game in 1996. 60,000 fans went to go see the match between Guatemala and Costa Rica in a game that will qualify for the World Cup. The only problem was that the stadium could only fit 45,000 people. The extra 15,000 people pushed their way into the stadium, causing fights, resulting into a chaotic stampede. In the end, over 80 people were trampled to death by the crowd. And for today's birthday, shout out goes to Oscar Wilde, the controversial writer from the 19th century, was born in Dublin, in Ireland, and has written classics like Picture of Dorian Gray and The Importance of Being Earnest. And this is all for this morning history segment. To learn more cool historical facts, please go online under history.com. Stay with us. The coffee segment is next. But first, let's take a look at our events calendar. Well, welcome back. So now it's the coffee segment, and we are going to replay my interview that I did last week with Cindy Parola, who is a member of the Dickus family. Our discussion was around the new elementary school and what will be the name of this new elementary school. It seemed, what I thought, that the biggest hurdle in this entire process was approving Proposition 2.5, but apparently it was not. It was not the $90 million budget that we're going to acquire, the debt we're going to acquire to build this new school. Not that. Apparently, it's about naming this new school. Everybody wants to weigh in. So Cindy came to the studio to talk about her side of the story, why she feels that the name Dickus should be transferred to the new elementary school. Take a look. Come back. This is the coffee segment. Good morning, Wareham, broadcasting live here at WCTV studio. My guest is Cindy Parola here in the studio to talk about the issue regarding naming the new elementary school in Wareham, what the name should be, why, and actually who has the final say. Today we are going to hear about her family's story, their contributions, and why she feels that the John W. Dickus name should be transferred to the new school that is supposed to be opening next year, 2020, God willingly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. You're a very vocal person. I love it. Which means, yeah, I got all my sources. I was like, that question answered, that question answered, that question answered. Very vocal, very good. You're pleading your case. You wrote an opinion piece published on the Wareham Week.
Yes.
You presented during the school committee October 3rd meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And you were there to talk about your family's contributions to this town, specifically to the school district, right?
Yep.
So tell us about your family.
Oh, well, it can go back a long way, but you know, for the purposes of this discussion, I think, you know, it's as I said in my letter to the editor, and I think, as I said in front of the school committee, you know, the Dickus family is a classic immigration and immigrant story. So, you know, my grandfather came to this country. It took him a couple tries to get here. And, you know, I mean, you know, in the teens and you know, look, starting from the late 1800s, there was plenty of people immigrating to the United States from lots of countries where they thought that this was the land of opportunity. So, you know, my grandfather was one of hundreds of thousands of millions of people who did the same. He came here from Greece. A number of his brothers immigrated also, and they went into business together. And, you know, when my grandfather first came to this country, he was actually a shoeshine boy in New Bedford, and then got into the fruit and produce business. And then somebody here in Wareham said, you know, you should buy cranberry bogs. And so that's how Dickus Cranberry Company began. But they were already, the 219 Main Street, the block that's called the Dickus Building, they had already built that building, you know, by then. They actually went to the National Bank of Wareham next door and were turned down for a loan and borrowed money from other prominent Greek family businessmen who had already been in the United States and were able to borrow money and build their dream. But, you know, my grandfather and my mother inherited from my grandfather, was a believer in education. And he went to church he went to a church basement here in town to study English. That's how he learned the English language. They were doing classes, free classes. So, and he got his citizenship here in the United States by fighting in World War I. Wow. So, interesting.
Very interesting man. Very interesting man. Now, in 1960, was it 1968, 1963? You wrote
I actually have the article.
68.
So here it is. March 30th, 1968. Wareham receives $40,000 for school. So this is when my grandfather made the gift to the town. So it was presented to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and another selectman as well. So, and it was in memory of his only son, obviously, who was killed in World War II. So, you know,
And that is John William Deacon.
yes, and he was
Okay.
obviously born here in town, as was my mom.
All right. So he presented this check, $40,000. I mean, $40,000 is a lot of money today, and I'm sure it was a lot of money even more back then.
Sure.
Towards purchasing the land, right?
No, that was actually a donation it was kind of the beginning money to build the school.
Okay.
So the land donation had already happened at that point.
All right. So they built the school, and you talked about both when he died, your grandmother died, all the donations or anything went
Yeah,
towards the school.
they were philanthropic throughout their life to the school. My grandfather died first, and we earmarked donations to the school. And when my grandmother died as well, we did the same. And then, yeah, I actually have my mother's obituary here, and her funds were earmarked as well to the school as well as other Wareham charities. But so it was kind of a lifelong. You know, my mother was philanthropic to that school throughout her life. So continuing what her parents had done.
Okay. And also in 2003, this is the very recent, your mother donated $300,000?
Yes, that's actually that article there. And at the time, it was, she was doing her estate planning, and she wanted something long-term after she was gone to be able to go to the schools. And so they got an annual stipend from that $300,000 every year to go towards. Initially, you know, when her first donations were always earmarked to the library, it was always for reading materials, and increasingly after that, technology. As things moved forward and we changed our focus, as we all changed our focus, it became more technological. So it was always earmarked towards those items. Again, because, you know, she believed that she used to read when the Byron sisters had the Reading is Fundamental program here in the elementary schools. She always used to read every year with the children. So she believed reading was key.
Okay.
So.
So apart from the monetary money, the value that they have donated to your family throughout the years, they also, their devotion, their love towards education, and their love for this town and the support, that is invaluable. That is, you cannot put a price in it.
Well, you can't, but, you know, I think our family is just one of a lot of families who have been supportive of the town of Wareham. Whether it's just because you've been here for many generations and you've served on committees in the town or donated your time to the town or built buildings here in the town that other people can use. You know, I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of families. You know, Bill Minot, who was the last of the Minots in Wareham that I'm aware of, passed away a number of years ago. So, you know, there really isn't anyone to speak on behalf of the Minot family, but look at their contributions. We have a town forest because of them. We have the land that we built the school because of them. You know, you could go on for days about the contributions of the Makepeace family. But there are many other families that, you know, have a long history here in town. Bessie's, Hammonds, Griffiths, you know, who've been here multiple generations who, you know, maybe their contributions are small, or maybe they didn't help to build a school, or they didn't donate, you know, 25 acres or 100 acres or something like that. But they've been here for a lot of generations, and they've sunk a lot of hard-earned time and money into the town, and I just don't want to see that get lost. As I said in my letter, you know, the Toby Homestead was taken down, but it's still Toby Hospital. When South Coast Hospitals Group came in and joined Charlton Hospital, St. Luke's Hospital, and Toby Hospital together, and it was the South Coast Hospitals Group, those three hospitals didn't lose their identity. They didn't rename them. They stayed as Toby Hospital, as Charlton Hospital and St. Luke's. And I feel, you know, had they changed something like that, we would have lost the history of the Toby family. So, you know, I think it's a very similar analogy.
So tell me what you feel the right name should be.
Well, I think that, you know, I thought the Deacon School at Minot Forest really answered that question very simply and very quickly and very easily. And I know that was discussed at a couple of selectmen's meetings.
And that's what was presumably voted on during last fall's town meeting.
Correct. That's what the warrant article
some-
said?
yeah.
So I guess I thought at that point the question had been answered.
And that's what you're in favor for. Deacon's,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Deacon's School at Minot Forest.
Yes.
Okay, commemorating both names, having
Yes.
both schools stand.
Yes.
Now the school committee, and also the school committee and the school building committee, they are in favor of the Wareham Elementary School and having those prominent names in this community, all of them, not only Manito Deacons, Hammond, and others, displayed inside the school.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you be in favor of that?
Because I think it minimizes the impact that those families made on the community. I think that if you have to, let's be honest about it, who is going to be inside the school other than the students and the educators and occasionally the parents? So while it would keep the names in front of students, I think that the educators at both of those schools have kept the Minot name and the Deacon's name in their respective schools alive for the students through teaching. They always teach about the history of the two families. I think that the contributions are frankly too great for them to be relegated to a technology hub or a wing. So you would not have either of these two schools if you didn't have these two families, because you would have had to purchase the land. You would have had to, so maybe these schools wouldn't have been where they are. You wouldn't have the land today for either one of those schools. You know, the town stands to make money off the sale of the property, very prominent property, very centrally located property on Main Street that, you know, is formerly the Deacon School. So I don't think it should be relegated to a wing.
Now, some would say your argument is a passionate one, and because you are part of the family.
Sure.
And they would say that others in the community may have not donated hundreds of thousands of dollars, but their contributions have also been great to their capacity. People are paying taxes. That
Sure.
everybody, the argument of the school committee that there should be an inclusive school to not only honor the past, but also moving forward.
Sure.
And you weren't so happy about the word inclusive.
Well, it's not that I don't feel that that the wording. I don't feel that Wareham Elementary is necessarily makes it an inclusive. I don't like the word inclusive being used in that situation. If you want to be frank about the $90 million, then you should probably talk to every taxpayer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and frankly, every taxpayer who paid federal taxes in the United States, because the money is federal and state, is it not? Okay, so should we be naming it after some folks in Boston? Should we include some people in Marblehead? Should we include some people in Worcester? I mean, you could name every single taxpayer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I don't think that it's necessarily, our generosity does not preclude us from paying taxes as well. So, you know, our family owns 5 buildings on Main Street in Wareham. We pay a fair amount of taxes in the town of Wareham as well, and continue to do so. You know, there's probably 30, 40 odd members of my family that live in this community. So I think that argument, I think that argument is used very frequently by anonymous posters on websites all over this country, because everybody wants to rally about their tax dollars. And again, I think it would mean that all of our names in the whole United States would have to be on every school, whether it was in Massachusetts or in California, right?
Are you working to preserve the history of your family or the history of the town?
I think both. I think, as I said, I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of history. You know, listen, change happens. We all have to accept change. Buildings come down, buildings get rebuilt. and things change. I think that it's important to preserve the history. We have a very great community here in terms of people who like to preserve the history and remember the history. Um, there's people who've worked very hard to archive things at our library. We have a historical commission, we have a historical district. I think that that's very important because change does happen and buildings do come down. My grandparents' own house was torn down right around the corner from here. And so I think that I speak for both. I think there's a fine line between erasing history and retaining history and moving on and modernizing things. We're going to have a beautiful modern school, but I think that we should remember the families that brought it there.
Okay. So what's next? Now the big debate is who has the final say in naming the school. I know what you're in favor for. This seems like it's going to go towards the Springtown meeting for people, residents to vote on. If the vote comes that they should name it Wareham Elementary, are you going to take any further action?
I'm not sure there's any action I can take. I mean, I spoke before the school building committee, and the school building committee took it upon themselves to vote on the name of the school. I didn't understand or realize that they were tasked with doing that. I've served on a school building committee in the past, and the question of a name never came up. It didn't seem like it was part of what they're tasked to do. I think it's a municipal building until it's handed over to the school. It's municipal funds, and I think that I would think that that would be vested in the leaders of the town, which would be the selectmen.
The selectmen who are actually in favor of the Dickers School at Minot, and they're actually the iffiness of whether they should be saying this or not. So I guess within few months or weeks or days, we'll find out who has the final say in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's premature to say that it's going to be on the spring town meeting warrant. I was a little confused by the article in the paper initially about the school committee chair saying it was going to be on the fall town meeting warrant, because that kind of insinuated to me like that he already knew what the vote of his committee was going to be. And when he said that at the school committee meeting that I was at on October 3rd, he said, it would be on the warrant in the Springtown meeting. I thought, again, it seems like he has already predicted a vote that hasn't happened with his committee. And again, I think that having served as a member of the Board of Selectmen, warrant articles are placed on the warrant at the request of various boards and committees, and the selectmen have the final say as to whether an article goes on the warrant. So that's a question for them.
Will you be making any other presentations anytime soon?
I don't. I think I've explained the history of my family. I'm not really sure who else I can appeal to, but I think I've done my best.
Very good. Thank you so much, Cindy, for
Thank
being
you.
here in the studio to teach us a little bit more about your family.
Sure.
Very impressive history.
I appreciate you having me.
Inspiring one. So to my viewers, thank you so much for being in the studio this morning for another episode of Good Morning Wareham Show. My guest was Cindy Parola of Dickers Family to talk about the $90 million question. What will be the name of the new elementary school, and who gets the final say? And the conversation is ongoing. I hope that either the superintendent or the school committee or the school building committee will be in the studio either the end of this week or next week to come and share their perspective on this matter. With that, this particular show, if you missed this morning, will be rebroadcasted at 6 p.m. tonight. We'll also go on our Wareham Community Television YouTube channel. And we'll be back on Friday with a surprise guest. I do not know who it is, so don't ask me. So thank you so much, Wareham. Have a pleasant day. Bye. what you just witnessed is the discussion that I had with Cindy Parola talking about the naming of the new school. We will continue this discussion as the week continues because on Friday I'm hoping that Selectman Alan Slavin will be back in the studio to talk about their side of the story. I also extended the invitation to our school department, and hopefully Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood will be able to make it here very soon to also talk about the school side of the story. So this discussion is ongoing one. Once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us. If you'd like to suggest any topics, feel free to email me directly, queen@warehamtv.org. You can also reach me on Facebook or any types of social media. Effectively, you can call here at WCTV, and I'll get your message. So Wareham, until next time, bye.